Hey guys, Fallen Messiah here. So, as you probably already know, we just had a massive blog post slash video from the devs of Diablo team going through all the changes upcoming in Season 11 in Diablo 4, and it's going to be massive, guys. So we're gonna have basically a Loot 3.0. This is the biggest overhaul the game has seen all the way since Season 4, so we have a lot of stuff to cover. Let's get right into it. But before we do, if you like this kind of content and you like Diablo 4 coverage and build guides, etc., drop a like to the video and sub to the channel. It really helps me out tremendously. Anyway, let's go over through the changes now because there is a lot of stuff to talk about. So tempering has been completely redesigned and now it basically gonna work. They limited tempering to a single affix and it's no longer possible to break your items, which is fantastic. To compensate, they also added one additional affix to legendary items, which is gonna essentially make them more powerful straight off the bat, which is another plus. And also we can now re-roll that temper indefinitely. So you can pick whatever temper you want, you're only shooting for range, which I think is a fantastic change. It's not perfect. Personally, I don't mind the current system as long as you had the chance to easily re-roll the tempers. Or at the very least, the chance to keep the temper that you already have. But I guess this is some kind of middle ground, some kind of compromise. That's fine. Overall, pretty good changes. It definitely removes the annoyance of the current tempering system. Enchanting, same deal. They have revamped it and they have removed the annoyances of the current system, so they introduced a new concept called item quality. Basically increasing either the base weapon damage or the armor values of the, well, armor items and all res or individual res on jewelry. Basically, the way it works, you masterwork an item and it's gonna give it a random item quality, I believe up to 5 at a time, and the maximum quality level is 20. Once you reach the final quality level, which is 20, you have basically masterworked that item. And now you have a chance to roll for an extra greater affix. So this, in my opinion, is infinitely better than what we have right now, and it also allows you to be more deterministic in the ways that you build your endgame gear. It's also going to, in my opinion, make legendary items even more powerful. I think that's really needed because they're kind of falling behind unique items, in my opinion, right now. But this is going to be absolutely amazing because let's say you find a decent amulet that has, like, let's say, willpower percentage greater affix. You enchant a passive on it. Well, with this system, you can make that passive into GA as well. Something that ordinarily you would never find in the wild, or it would take you billions of gold to buy yourself. Great change. And also, if you do reroll, you only reroll the capstone bonus, the greater affix bonus. The item quality ranks remain, which is just great. So definitely a hell of a lot better system that we have right now, because currently masterworking is so incredibly annoying to deal with. It's too much RNG and not fun, extremely frustrating. So definitely huge thumbs up in the right direction for sure. And I'm looking forward to test this on the PTR as well. Number 3, we have monsters. Monsters are now meaner and smarter. They're going to try and keep themselves out of packs and prevent you to kill them in one fell swoop. They're smarter, they're more tactical, they're, whatever. We're gonna test this out. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And also, finally, the purple resistant aura guys have been sent to the trash, to the dumpster where they belong. I do not like them. The main problem with them is that with some builds it's almost impossible to target monsters directly. For example, the brand new Cataclysm Druid guide that I have right now. Cataclysm is a huge AoE spell that kind of targets monsters by itself, but you cannot directly target damage resistant aura monster, which makes it incredibly difficult and frustrating to play. So I love this change. Make it more challenging in terms of damage output of the monsters. Don't make us target kill a specific one. I think that's a wrong approach to the game, and I'm glad they're finally recognizing that. And also, what I'm especially excited about is that they're reintroducing a more familiar D2/D3 monster system in terms of champions and rares. So now we're gonna have these blue champion monsters that all share different affixes, and we're gonna have yellow rare monsters that have minions that also share affixes. I think that's great. This has worked really well in D2 and D3, and I'm glad this system is making a comeback. Not only that, but also we're gonna have a lot more visual clarity in terms of what monsters have specific affixes and whether they're champions and rares. And trust me, that also goes a long way, especially in higher tiers of the pit where things are already chaotic as it is. Now, at the very least, you can immediately see and intuit what's happening on your screen. Some affixes are returning from D3, like Fire Chains. I like that. It's annoying, but I feel certain affixes should be annoying in a sense. And also, I'm excited to see how it's gonna look like. They also brought back some other affixes from D3, but they didn't reveal which ones. I've seen the gameplay. They have something like Martyrdom. I wonder what that means. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all the new affixes that have been cooking up. Apparently, monsters are gonna be harder. They're gonna have more affixes. It's gonna be more of a challenge. So I'm looking forward to test that out, for sure. All of that looks really cool, and I'm really excited to try it. Okay, now let's talk about Toughness. Toughness is going to be reintroduced to Diablo 4. Essentially, they're going to completely redesign the defensive stats in D4, and they took heavy inspiration from Diablo 3, which honestly, I think is a great idea. I think Diablo 3 does this really well. So, there's a lot of misconceptions about this online already, so let me explain what this actually means. Instead of a hard cap, 1000 armor or 75 all res, now these are quote-unquote rating systems where you can infinitely get more and more resistances, and every point of all res or armor is going to increase your survivability and damage reduction, but at severe diminishing returns at a certain point. So for example, let's say if you have 700 armor and then you jump to 900, that's great, that's a lot of damage reduction. But if you jump from, let's say, 2000 to 2100, you're still gonna get a little bit more, but not nearly as much. So that's basically the core concept of diminishing returns. You always get a little bit of something, but the value of usefulness decreases exponentially. That's kind of the gist of it. And this worked really well in Diablo 3. And let me tell you why I really enjoy this change. First of all, this allows your armor and all res to always be useful. So in the current system, if you solved your armor cap and res cap, then anything else, any extra armor point, any extra res point is useless. You have literally no use for it. But in this revamped system, it's always going to be at least a little bit useful. Not only that, I feel one thing specifically kind of flew from people's radar. And this is that this change is going to make your non-primary stat even more valuable than what it is right now. Just to remind you guys, in case you forgot or didn't pay attention, your primary stat determined your damage multiplier, of course. So if you're a druid, you want to stack up willpower because it increases your damage, blah blah blah. But strength also gives you more armor, and intelligence gives you all res. This is true regardless of what class you're playing. So what this means is that in the current system of the game, if you have hit your armor cap and you hit your res cap, then any extra points on all stats, or in other words, your non-primary stats, are basically useless because you gain no benefit from it. But what this change does is essentially it makes all the non-primary stats more useful and you actually get something out of them. So this is especially useful for your Paragon board, where every time you select a non-primary stat, it's still going to do something for you. Let's say you're playing a druid and you're selecting strength. Maybe this time, instead of it being, just a hindrance in your way to grab more willpower nodes, maybe you actually go out of your way to grab strength nodes because you want more armor. I think that's great. It actually provides value to these nodes that you would ordinarily skip, or at the very least not care about. So double thumbs up for that. And of course, they redesigned armor so that it now mitigates all damage as opposed to just physical one, which is another huge step in the right direction for me. Okay, so now they also made big changes to healing, which I think is one of the biggest pain points in the game as well. Potions have been capped to 4 as opposed to 13 we have now, which is just a hot mess. So this is another big change from Blizzard. And now they also replenish every 30 seconds, which I think is also very good. I had some pretty big issues this season where, for example, I would clear the normal level of the pit and then I would spawn in the boss room, but I would have no potions left. But I digress. That's a great change. Not only that, but now potions just immediately heal 35% of your HP as opposed to this really awkward heal over time that we have right now. So that's huge. It's definitely another big step in the right direction. Current potion system is very clunky. very unintuitive, and I just don't like it at all, so this is definitely a lot better. They're also going to reintroduce life on hit, and also all healing stats have been buffed, which is another thing that's really kind of a pay point in this game. You're always going to go for armor or all res, and if you get like a life regen or life on kill, these are basically trash stats in the game right now because they're just so bad. So if they buff them to a good level, they can actually be really desirable. In Diablo 3, they were. And here I made a couple of notes. Basically, these are big steps in the right direction. Current potion mechanics are really awkward and unnecessarily convoluted, and this makes things a lot more streamlined. One thing I would love to point out here and kind of highlight, because this game takes a lot of inspiration from Diablo 3, which I think is a good thing. Diablo 3 is a great game. One thing I really loved about Diablo 3 is the life orbs. Something that I really miss in Diablo 4. I think Diablo 3 devs were really cooking with the life orbs. The reason why I love them so much is because they reward action-oriented gameplay. And it's kind of like an immediate healing on the go, straight up. So you attack monsters, and at a certain threshold they drop a life orb, and then it just heals you immediately. No need to worry about potions, because as long as you're doing damage, as long as you're an active participant in combat, you're gonna get your healing at the same time. I think that's great, and I would love for life orbs to make a return in any kind of capacity in Diablo 4. Next up, we have Sanctification. This is a new ultimate crafting mechanic. It's going to be Season 11 specific, and also it's going to represent a kind of a new way to brick an item, but with big potential rewards. The reason why I don't mind this at all is because there's a big difference if you potentially brick an item at the end of its life cycle, as opposed to its beginning, which is the tempering. Imagine you get a brand new 3GA item and then you immediately brick it on tempering. That feels incredibly unsatisfying, and it just feels really, really bad. However, if you already have a great item, you already got your tempers and your masterworkings, and then you have this like one final polish, one final chance of making it perfect, and it doesn't end up being perfect, that's fine. You can still use this item, it's still usable. It might not be the best in slot, but you can still use it, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. I think some risk should exist in the game as long as it's coupled with great rewards, and from what I've been hearing the devs talk about, you have a potential of kind of like applying another legendary aspect on these items. That's great. I love that. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that in action in the PTR. We also have a lesser evil season mechanic. Basically, Renown is going to return as a world boss, and also they have this kind of recurring theme in season 11, where every lesser evil invades certain kind of game activity. For example, Duriel invades Helltide, Andariel invades Kurast, etc. And I like it. This seems interesting. It's a good idea to keep all these different activities fresh and give them kind of a new coat of paint. So, a big fan of that. And speaking of that, we also have new Divine Gifts, which is the new seasonal powers, perks, whatever you want to call them. And they tie in really well together with these new lesser evil mechanics in Season 11. So for example, if you're running Helltides and you're summoning Duriel, as you would summon the Blood Maiden, you also increase the levels of his perks, his bonuses, etc. Also, these kind of modifiers, powers, whatever you want to call them, come in 3 different flavors: Rewards, Purified, and Corrupted. And you have this kind of interface where you can actually juice up the content in your game, increase the difficulty, but then you also get better rewards, which I really, really like. It basically allows you to customize the way that you want to play the game. So for example, if you need something, if you need obols, you're gonna put in the perks and powers that give you more obols, and if you need something like, let's say, increased chance to level up your glyphs, then you're gonna go with that instead. Or you can go with everything, but then you're gonna make your game a lot harder. So I really like that. I think they're really kind of cooking with this one, and I'm looking forward to try it on the PTR as well. And I also put a little note here that it's kind of similar to Profane Mind Cages that we had before, but a lot more interesting. Definitely very intriguing. Okay, and now let's talk about the tower. This is kind of a new activity they're gonna introduce in Season 11, along with the leaderboards. Finally, we're finally here, boys. So it's kind of like the pit, but not the pit. It has 5 levels as opposed to 2, and also it has pylons. Pylons make a return from Diablo 3. And it also has monsters kind of follow you around, which allows you to herd them, kind of in the same way we used to with Greater Rifts in Diablo 3. You can kind of aggro the monsters and you herd them to a desired spot, which preferably is going to be the pylon, which you can then activate and just kill them in one fell swoop. So I'm really excited to try that. Apparently it's going to be really competitive and you can access the same ranks of the tower that you cleared in the pit. But one thing that kind of confused me is their decision to make a separate distinction and two different activities between the pit and the tower. So apparently their philosophy is that pit is for farming, while tower is for kind of pushing your metal and pushing the highest score that you can be. And ultimately it's the tower that's going to be ranked on the leaderboard and not the pit. Personally, I thought this was a perfectly good opportunity to kind of juice up the pit. It's been unchanged ever since it's been introduced to the game. I think that was Season 5, right? And it hasn't gotten any love since then. I think this was a perfect opportunity to introduce pylons to the pit, to introduce at least one extra level in the pit, and also to make the leaderboard specific to the pit. I'm not gonna hate on this. I'm looking forward to try and see what they've been cooking with the tower, and who knows, maybe I end up being pleasantly surprised. We'll see. As far as the leaderboard is concerned, they're gonna have separate normal and hardcore, and also they're gonna be class specific, and also with the option, of course, to have 2-player, 3-player, and 4-player leaderboards as well. So big thumbs up for that. I'm really looking forward to see how competitive it's going to be next season. Leaderboards always bring up a lot of good players who really love to compete and try hard, and this is ultimately very good for the community and the game itself. So I think ultimately this is going to be really good for Diablo 4. They have said that both the tower and leaderboards are going to be in beta in Season 11, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. They have the entire season to get feedback from us, for us to try it. That's great. No argument for me. And they also said it has 5 floors, so which kind of allows you to skip a couple of floors, or at least a floor or two if you hate the modifiers of the monsters that you've gotten. Which kind of has been a reoccurring grievance for the pit, that you only have 2 floors and you kind of have to play whatever you get. Not only that, but some floors kind of force you to go back and you end up in a dead end, but I guess that's a topic for a different time. I just wish we had these quality of life changes to the pit as well. And last but not the least, we have final change for the Season 11. They're going to introduce something called Season Ranks, which combines Season Journey and Renown in a very interesting way. So first of all, the old Renown rewards like Skill, Paragon, that's all gonna be gone. It's all gonna be part of new Season Journey or Season Ranks now. What this means is that we're no longer starting with like 10, 15 extra skill points, which honestly, thank God, this was really weird and awkward to begin with, so I'm really glad that's gone. Instead, we're gonna earn them through the season journey, so I think that's a very good compromise. They're also returning a fan favorite, the Capstone Dungeons. It's kind of a skill check, it's a gear check. It makes a return, and essentially, you have to complete these dungeons to unlock the next tier of difficulty, which I like. And they also kind of tease some interesting new changes and mechanics that we haven't seen from Capstone Dungeons before, so why not? I'm looking forward to it. Capstone Dungeons basically have a set level as opposed to scaling with your own level. So the first Capstone Dungeon has a set level of 30 for all the monsters and content inside, but you can access it immediately and get wrecked, I assume. But that's great. We should have these areas in the game that serve as a skill check that you can test your metal with, but they're also immediately available for you just in case you're able to do them anyway. So I love that. Renown changes should remain unchanged in Eternal. The only thing that's gonna change are the potion changes, which are global. And one thing that I did note, they didn't mention any side quests. You know, we have like hundreds of side quests in Diablo 4, all these NPCs. Some of them are actually really fun, but the problem is that you never have any incentive to do them other than that one time, because their rewards are pitiful. And I actually have suggested before in several of my previous videos, you actually can use these side quests to spice up the gameplay of the open world even further. Like, for example, let's say if one of these rewards gave you an amulet that spawns a treasure goblin every 2 minutes. It's not overpowered, it's not gonna be the best in slot item by any means, but it's still pretty fun and interesting. or maybe a different item that increases cinders in hell tides by 30%. You see what I mean? Like, this is a good opportunity for them to really be creative and to juice up all these rewards from these season journeys, and then in turn this incentivizes players to engage with the open world and with these NPCs in the first place. Just something that I'm throwing out there. It's not the biggest of deals, but it's definitely something that I would love to see, because I'm a big fan of games using their existing assets in a fresh new way to kind of refresh the game itself. And I think side quests have a lot of potential, because right now they're gonna be pretty much completely irrelevant, even more than they already are. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me, guys. This has been all there is to know about Season 11 so far. I have to say I am a big fan. I did not expect this. They've been cooking really hard behind the scenes. To be completely honest, 4 months ago, I made a video on the 2-year anniversary in which I was very critical about the state of the game, and I was very pessimistic and disappointed about their lack of willingness to propel the gameplay forward and to make bold, sweeping changes. So I'm glad that 4 months later, I'm actually proven wrong. I love that. I love this game, I love Diablo, and I want the game to be the best that it can be. And I think Season 10 has been kind of a new beginning for Diablo 4. It was the first time they kind of really tried to make some sweeping changes to the gameplay, and they made some changes to the itemization that we've never seen in the game before. And now they're following this with some very serious sweeping changes to the core gameplay mechanics. They're basically overhauling the entire game, and I'm so glad that they proved me wrong, that they actually do care. And I'm also glad that we're getting this a lot earlier than I actually expected. In that video, I was kind of thinking that they're only going to do this right before the expansion, but it seems like they're kind of preparing the field, and they actually do have a desire to completely change up the gameplay for the better long before the expansion drops. So I love that. The only thing I don't really like is that I haven't heard them mention enchanting even once, which is a pretty notable omission. So we have huge changes to tempering, masterworking, and other gameplay systems, but enchanting is still going to be the same? I hope not, because it's also just as frustrating as tempering and masterworking is at this point. We can spend literal billions trying to chase that one desired affix, and you might still not end up getting it. It's frustrating, and it has to change. Other than that, I'm a huge fan of everything they announced coming Season 11, and I cannot wait to jump into the PTR and try everything myself. So kudos where kudos is due. They've been really cooking behind the scenes. I love pretty much all of this. I'm so excited to try it, and I'm so excited that our game is finally heading into the right direction. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me today. I'm Fallen Messiah. If you like these kind of videos, press the like on the video, sub to the channel, I really appreciate it. And stay tuned for more upcoming Diablo 4 videos, build guides, and more. And I'll see you in the next one.